Thank you, Mr. Greenwood. Mr. Regan, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, for inviting me to testify today about the historic and long overdue investments of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law made in America's public transportation, and most importantly, in its frontline workforce. I'm speaking today on behalf of 36 unions who collectively represent the majority of those workers. They include bus and rail transit operators, station agents, car cleaners, mechanics, and other frontline professionals. Today, we may hear from some who argue that investments in public transit are a waste of taxpayer dollars. We may hear that public transit only serves New York City while disregarding the millions of Americans in rural, small, and medium-sized cities who have always counted on public transit and who continue to count on it today. We may hear that the pandemic has doomed public transit. I want to be clear on one fact. Those claims are wrong. They are short-sighted, and they ignore the critical role of transit for millions of working people who rely on these services for most of their transportation needs. That is truer today than any time in our modern history. The American middle class has been under attack for decades, while the wealthy continue to get wealthier. Nearly two-thirds of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck, and the pandemic placed even greater strain on their household budgets, which were already stretched thin to the point of cruelty in one of the richest nations on the planet. And now, because of historically high gas prices, your constituents will have to look their families in the eye while they decide whether to put gas in their car, food on their tables, pay their utilities, hire child care, all while dealing with all the other pressures that unchecked corporate greed and rampant inequality and the erosion of worker rights have placed on their lives. Some might incorrectly respond by saying that the cost of gas is President Biden's fault. To those listening to this hearing at home, please know that these are disingenuous claims that are only meant to prey on your fears so that wealthy corporations and their allies in Congress can profit economically and politically while the American people work harder yet get poorer. I say all this to make one point. It would be a grave mistake to undermine the workers in this industry, the essential service they provide to commuters in urban and rural communities alike, and the pocketbooks of every single American by turning our back on the benefits delivered by public transit. There's only one solution to drive the pre-pandemic growth we saw in this industry: more service, better service, and the kind of real long-term vision delivered by President Biden, the members of this committee, and the bill. Not only did the bill make unprecedented investments in public transportation, it also included two of transportation labor's biggest priorities: to protect workers from assault and to create new, good jobs in clean transit. 2 years ago, TTD's past president, Larry Willis, testified before this committee about the horrific safety conditions faced by transit workers on the job every single day, a problem that has only grown worse during the pandemic, as has previously been noted. Thanks to the hard work of this committee, Senator Van Hollen, Transportation Labor, and the unwavering support of President Biden, we will finally be able to turn the tide and ensure safety for our workers. The bill included critical reforms that require, for the first time, that the Federal Transit Administration collect accurate data on transit workforce assaults, reform its Public Transportation Agency safety plan process to include worker voices and incorporate measures to reduce the risk of assault in every single transit system in this country, and update its national safety plan to address the risk of assault and other public health concerns. While we wait for these new safety requirements to be implemented, it is deeply painful to witness transit workers still facing the threat of assaults and other unsafe conditions that place them in harm's way at their workplace. Last week, I spoke with Administrator Fernandez and her team at the FTA, and I'm confident they're working as quickly as possible to ensure that no transit worker will ever again wake up wondering if today is the day that they wind up in the hospital or worse because their employers did not protect them. Second, the bill clearly illustrates that innovative new technologies and the creation and maintenance of good union jobs go hand in hand when good policy ties it together. Chair Brown fought to ensure that massive new investments in low or no emission vehicle program were tied to truly historic investments in the incumbent and future workforce. Specifically, the bill requires transit agencies to show the workforce impacts of the transition to zero emission buses, and it also addresses one of the largest existing skills gaps in this industry by providing millions of dedicated funding for workforce training. Tying workforce training, including labor management training programs and apprenticeships, to the adoption of new technologies will ensure a high-road labor model that provides good union jobs and is consistent with the Department of Transportation's new innovative principles, which make clear that workers will have a voice at the table in the adoption of new tech. Last week, the FTA issued its first funding opportunity for the revised Low and No program. Thanks to Senator Brown's clear vision for workers and FTA Administrator Fernandez's commitment to workforce training, the FTA will guarantee that the training needs of the transit maintenance workforce will keep pace with new technology. Their careers can grow along with the advancements in tech. We thank both of you for your important work on this truly historic issue and its huge improvement for transit workers. Again, thank you both for having me, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Regan. Ms. Schultz is recognized from New York.